Dr. Olivia. My name is Cram and I'm the Director of Fitness, and thank you for joining me for today's Mastering Form workout. The Mastering Form workout series is meant to really kind of take you through sort of the step-by-step, just sort of things that you can do with exercises, but to do them safely and to perform them correctly, which is very important, right? That's the most important thing when you're doing exercise, is that you're doing it correctly. So that way you're less likely to injure yourself. So that's what the Mastering Form series is all about. So today what we're going to kind of go through is some exercises that you can do for two areas of the body that we sometimes kind of overlook. We do use these muscles all the time, but sometimes we really don't kind of isolate them. So I want to show you what those are all about. And that's going to be the abductors, which are the outer areas of the hip here, and the adductors, which are the sort of the inner thigh area. The abductors and the adductors, I know it's a mouthful, really perform some very important roles with regards to your lower body stability, with regards to your hips, your knees, walking, stepping side to side. So they're very important muscles to make sure that you're incorporating into your workout routine. So I want to show you some of my favorites that you can do while you're at home with little or no equipment at all, because there's definitely machines that you can do at the gym that you can incorporate working this area in this area, but at home sometimes you may wonder, well, what can I do? I don't have that machine that goes in and out. So I want to kind of show you some of those exercises. As usual, if this is your first time joining me for one of the Mastering Form workout series, to always check with your doctor. We're going to take things slow. This is more of a tutorial or a step-by-step process, so we're not going to get the heart rate elevated too much, but you still want to make sure that you are A-okay to begin any kind of new activity. And keep water with you. As usual, water is important, so just like with this routine or anything else, just have the water nearby and have an area that you feel like you've got some safe space to be able to exercise in. All right, so let's dive in. We're going to start with the abductors first, okay? And when you think about abductors, just think about the outside of the hips or the outside of the thighs. The first exercise I want to show you is called a banded side lying hip abduction. So it's quite the mouthful, but that's what it's called. And we're going to use this one to start off with a band. Now, I've incorporated exercises with you before that use bands. I'm a big believer in them because they really are a great way to get in a lot of different exercises, and they travel awesome. So, you can take them with you wherever you go. So we're going to do this exercise first with this band. And if it's your first time using bands or your first time doing this exercise, choose a band that's light until you kind of get the hang of it a little bit, and then you can always increase your resistance level on your band. All right, so let's get started with this first exercise, the band side lying hip abduction. This move right here is really an isolating move. Which means that it's really going to focus specifically on that main area that we're working on. And it's also going to be a unilateral move, which means that we're just going to go focus on one leg at a time. So we're going to put the band around the ankles, and what we're going to do is just going to lie on the floor on our side. You want to make sure if you are resting on your elbow, that your elbow is directly underneath your shoulder. So you don't want that shoulder, you don't want to have that elbow way out. It just puts a lot of uncomfortability on your shoulder. So make sure that you've got a really good straight line there. You want to try to keep your hips forward. You want to try to avoid rolling backwards or rolling down. So your hips are kind of towards me or towards the screen. My feet are nice and relaxed and my legs are straight. And what I want to do is just lift this leg up and down, just like that. And what you should notice, especially if you have a resistance band, you're going to really start to feel that right here pretty quickly. That's those abductors, those outer thighs, that outer hip area that you're working. And I'm just going to go up and down. This hand, you can put it here for support, whatever you feel like you need to do. I'm bringing my leg about shoulder width, so as far as height, shoulder height. I'm not going too high, right? So about shoulder height for me. And I'm up and down. Feet are relaxed. Some are, really like to point the toes forward, but you can always just relax the toes, okay? So just up and down. Now, the great thing about this specific exercise, this side lying hip abduction, is you can absolutely do this without the band. So maybe you don't have a band, which is fine. Maybe the band, even the lighter resistance is just too much right now. No problem. You can work this same exercise without it. And you're still gonna get that tension that's gonna build up here in that abductor or that outer thigh area. It's really good to help isolate those hips, okay? Now let's just say, for instance, being up on your shoulder bothers you for whatever reason. You can absolutely lie down. So you can lie down, kind of support your head, or not, and you can modify this exercise just like so. So I'm still not coming up super high, right? I still am just bringing it within the natural range of my hips. And up and down. All right. Starts to burn, right? Okay, good. Okay, so the next exercise we're going to do that focuses on the outer thigh, the hip abduction area, is called a mini band wall sit abduction. Now, again, I'm going to use the band for this one. And I'm going to put the band above my knees for this exercise. Right above the knees. Okay. We're going to be using a wall for this one. Hence the word wall abduction. And I want to sort of have my back up against the wall in a squat. Okay, so I'm going to drop my hips down. My back is firmly against the wall, and I want to try to get into a 90-degree angle with my hips. So that hip line and my feet, I want to be at a nice 90-degree angle, ideally. If you aren't able to go down quite so high and low, that's okay, all right? But try to keep your back firmly against the wall. And then I'm just going to use those outer thighs, the abductors, to open the band. Open the band. Keeping my core nice and tight, opening the band. Open the band, right? So again, this is really not only, the good thing about this exercise is you're not only working your abductors right here, you're gonna feel this in the front of the thighs, you're gonna feel in the rear end area. So this is more of a compound movement and compound exercise because we're working more than one muscle group. There we go. So in and out. And notice I'm trying to still keep my feet pretty close together, okay? Hip width. I don't want to necessarily have my feet out too wide. All right. So that one starts to burn quite a bit, especially not just here, but also front of the thighs and the back of the thighs. Now, if you don't have a band for this one, you can always, again, tackle it without, okay? So just that movement itself, tackling that without, getting into that position, that 90 degrees, and kind of just practicing opening in and out using the abductors. Okay, good. All right, so the next one we're gonna do is a standing hip abduction. Okay, now with this one, we can use the band, or we don't have to use the band. So I'm gonna show you this without the band for right now, for this time. This right here, I like this exercise because it also challenges your balance. If you feel like your balance is a little bit tricky, then have something you can hold on to. A wall, a stable chair, stable sofa, just something that you feel is not gonna move on you. I'm gonna stand with my feet about shoulder width apart, and I'm just gonna lift that leg up and down. My leg is pretty straight. There's a slight bend in this one that I'm not using. I don't want to sort of lock out that knee joint. So this not only challenges this part of my leg, that abductor area, but it also challenges my balance. Now, if my legs are a little tight and tired, I might feel something on this leg that's doing the stabilizing, and that's okay, all right? So then when I've done the amount of reps that I'm looking for, I'm going to switch to the other leg. And I want to keep my toe pointed towards you, pointed towards the screen. The reason why with this one is because I want to make sure that if my toe is pointed more towards you, towards the screen, then I'm going to really isolate this area more so. If my toe is pointed up towards the ceiling, I'm going to feel a little bit more here, which is not a bad thing, but if I'm really just trying to kind of hone in on this area as much as I can, changing my toe position really can kind of help with that. So just a little bit of a tip with regards to where that toe is. Core is tight. And what I want to avoid doing is this, okay? Just like when we were lying on the ground, we just want to go sort of natural for that hip, okay? So just bringing it up, shoulder height, right? So that leg isn't really going past my shoulder, just like if I was lying down. Now, I could also do this with a band. Same thing, put this around my ankles. It's going to definitely change the level of resistance that I get, and it's probably going to change my range of motion, depending on what type of band I have. This is a mini band. There's all kinds of bands, but the band definitely adds an added layer of resistance. Also ankle weights. So if you don't have bands, but you have ankle weights, that's another sort of piece of equipment that you can incorporate when you're doing that standing hip abduction, or even the lying hip abduction that we did. All right, perfect. All right, now let's go ahead and jump into the abductors. So we did 3 exercises for right here, the outer thighs or abductors, the hip area. Now we're going to do a couple of exercises for the inner thighs, or what's called the abductors. Now the abductors help with, again, lower body stability as well. Good for things like you're walking, okay, and sort of bringing your body, your legs in and out. You know, sort of squeezing those thighs together. The inner thighs are really great for that, and they're really good for your hip strength and your mobility. So both areas are really good for just stabilization of the hips and stabilization for the knees. So that's always important to do. Now this one here is called a side lying hip abductor. So, you know, now we just started switching it up, right? So we're gonna get back on the ground. And don't let the adductor words throw you off at all. Just think inner thigh, outer thigh. Keeps it nice and simple. Okay, now with this one here, same thing. I'm gonna be lying on my side. I want my hips forward, or just a natural position. I want my elbow underneath my shoulder, okay? And now there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can either position the foot in the front, and the leg we're going to use is behind. And I can lift up. And what I'm doing is I'm using that inner thigh to bring that leg up and down. Now, if you find that maybe your range of motion of having this foot in front doesn't feel good for you and you can't go up as high as you want to, then you can absolutely position the leg behind. Same thing, right? Same thing. I would say though, just kind of be cautious about when your leg is behind, because you want to tend to lean back more so that way. And we don't want that. So stay forward and lift. I'm lifting this leg right here as high as this knee. That's my goal, okay? Again, anything higher, you know, is really unnecessary, and you may not even be able to get any higher than the knee anyway. So that's sort of my range of motion, is as high as my knee. Keeping that toe relaxed and up and down. And you're gonna feel that right there. Those inner thigh muscles, this exercise is really great for just targeting that area. It's something I really like, and it's a real hip dominant exercise. And again, it's still an isolating exercise because you're gonna feel it primarily here. So that's the side lying hip abductor. Now, you can do this with a band, okay? Or I would say a ankle weight. So that way you can kind of just put the ankle weight on this leg. If you use the band will go right around this area, okay? But it's a little hard to do with the band. Maybe an ankle weight might serve you a little better when you're lifting that leg up. So focusing right there. All right, perfect. Okay, now, next one I want to show you is using the band, and we're going to do a seated bench band adductor, okay? Now with this one, we're going to need something to basically anchor this. That could be a bench, it could be a chair that's sturdy, it could be, if you're at the gym doing this, a squat rack or a rack, just something that's going to give you some stability, because you are going to need to anchor this band. So I'm going to grab a bench here, like so. And I'm gonna put the band underneath the bench, basically to hold it in place for me. And then I'm gonna put my knee, the leg that I wanna use, inside the other end. And what I want is I'm gonna use the anchor as a way to, the band is gonna try to use the anchor to pull my leg away from the midline, okay? This is the midline of my body. So that's where my inner thigh or my abductor is gonna come in place, because I'm gonna wanna bring it back to the midline. You see that? And I'm fighting the resistance to bring it back to the midline. I wanna sit up nice and tall, just like that, back to the midline. And you're gonna feel that in your inner thigh. Right there. And fight that resistance. Fight that resistance. Bring it back. Now, when you're bringing it back to the midline, it's important to make sure that you're not sort of turning the other way. So think about the middle of your body. Right? Middle of the body. Fight the resistance on the way in. Back to the middle. Fight the resistance on the way in. Back to the middle. Fight the resistance on the way in. I love this one. This is a really fun one to do because the bands, you really get that resistance when that's anchored down somewhere. The further the anchor is, so let's say for instance I was doing this with a rack and the anchor was over here, that's even more resistance, right? And you can even do this one standing up. So if you don't have something that you can sit down on, then standing up to do this works just as fine. It would just be a matter of bringing that leg back to the midpoint, right? If I had something that I anchored where I'm standing up, I would have the band just below my knee if I'm standing, and that's how I would work my inner thigh from a standing position and using an anchor point. All right, so good. I love working the adductors and the abductors. Okay, all right. Now, the last exercise we're going to do for the abductors or inner thighs is going to be a lateral lunge or a side lunge. Now, lunges, there's so many different lunges. The reason why I like this lateral lunge is because you're gonna feel a lot more on the inner thigh. And that's what we're targeting today, right? Is the inner thigh. So make sure when you're doing your lunges, your knees feel okay with it. Okay, you do utilize your knees a lot in lunges, so make sure you feel comfortable with it, because this is definitely a little bit of a different lunge than your traditional forward that you're probably accustomed to. All right, so we're going to start with the feet about hip-width apart. We don't need any band for this. I'm going to step in so you can see me here. And when I step with my right leg, what I want to do is send my hips back. Okay? And sending my hips back is going to put my body more in proper alignment. This leg is straight. I don't want my knee to be any more than 2 inches above, in front of my toe. So it's important to make sure I drop that hip back so that my knee is also back. And my knee should be between that second and third toe when I think about where that's going. And I push, okay? Hands wherever you want. Wherever you feel like you need them to be for balance or support. Drop my hips back, push. Drop my hips back, push. When I'm in here, this position, that inner thigh right there, push, okay? Same thing if I was doing it to my left side. Right here, everything is good. Dropping my hip back, push. Drop my hip back. Make sure that knee isn't extending beyond that toe too much. Knee is between that second and third toe, push. Hip lift, and push. Okay. The great thing about the lunges as well is that you can make it harder or easier. So if you feel like, you know what, using my own body weight is too easy, you can incorporate some dumbbells, kettlebells, you can add water bottles, cans. There's definitely ways you can kind of make that feel a little bit more challenging if you feel like you need to sort of step up your level, okay? So that's that lateral side lunge. Remember, just to focus on pushing through the heel and that knee placement, super important, okay? So if you were to see it from this angle, which sometimes is helpful, to do that, dropping my hip back, okay? And I push. Dropping my hip back, push, and push. Okay, so that was our abductors and adductors today. Okay, 2 areas of the body that are super important to incorporate into your workout routine. Really helps with that hip mobility, hip strength. It helps with your lower body strength, your walking, stepping side to side. And of course, it looks great when you tone and tighten those areas too. So just make sure that you're incorporating them into your routine. I hope you found these exercises helpful. If you have any questions about any of them, feel free to email me at fitness@livia.com, or if there's another exercise that you want to know about, you can always email me. I'm here to help you. Just remember, when it comes to form, you always want to practice getting it right. That way you're doing it safely and you're also developing the way you want. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again for the next one.